Next up, we have Trevor Penning, the big offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, 6'7", 325 pounds, a monster of a man. You've all probably seen his combine stats at this point in terms of the testing results. Uh, you know, I don't want to say blew the roof off the gym, but for his size, a 4.89 40-yard dash is incredible. A 4.62 shuttle, incredible. 7.25 three-cone, arguably the best of the bunch. A 9-foot 3-inch broad jump, right? All these great measurables. Supplement that with really incredible size, and I think you have a guy just off of that alone that's probably going to go pretty high. But what really matters to me, obviously, with my grading scale and whatnot, is the film grade and the film evaluation. And I'm not going to say I have questions with Trevor in that regard, although I certainly do. But I thought he was a solid player with some strengths and weaknesses, right, to say the least, which we'll talk about as we get into it. So first and foremost, the first, I don't want to say weakness, but perhaps the weakest aspect of his game, I would say, was just his raw pass protection grade. I thought one thing that he needs to do a better job at is treating the pass blocking reps like pass blocking reps and the run blocking reps like run blocking reps. What do I mean by that? So when you're run blocking, the name of the game is to decrease the separation between you and the defensive lineman or you and the linebacker, right? Because if you are all up into them, hands inside their chest, and you are just driving them off the line of scrimmage, they're never going to be able to break off and make a play, right? It's only when they're able to stab their hands inside of you, bench press you off of them, create that separation, find the ball with their eyes, and then shed with their hands, and, due to that space, that they're able to really make those plays. So as a run blocker, you want to decrease that space. As a pass blocker, on the flip side, you are trying to keep guys away from the quarterback, right? Away as far as possible from the quarterback. And you want to keep guys away from you as far as possible. That's the reason everybody cares about length at the NFL level, right? Because you want to keep guys out of your chest, and the longer arms you have, the better chance you have at being able to do that. And in that regard, one thing that Penning did was treat the pass block reps like he was run blocking. So he would lose all separation through contact as a pass blocker, which at Northern Iowa didn't really get him in trouble much at all, really. But at the next level, if you let Khalil Mack into your chest, they're gonna have to pick your scraps up off the top of the quarterback, right? He's gonna drive you right into him. And we didn't see him get beat that much through just those pure bull rushes necessarily in college, but again, he played at Northern Iowa, and that was the big note that I had on the bottom level of competition, question mark, because the best team I saw him play was Iowa State, and it's not like he was going against Breece Hall, right? He was going up against the defense in that regard, and there just wasn't a ton of talent that I saw him necessarily face. So there were some questions there, certainly some questions there. Reminiscent of last year, Tevin Jenkins did this out of Oklahoma State, who the Bears took in the second round, would do everything he could to treat every rep like a run block rep. And unfortunately, he got injured early last year, didn't really see him, but that's a big deal because it's a philosophical shift that you have to make, right? Instead of wanting to just attach to this guy and motor him as far away from the play as possible, you have to keep him at bay and not let him deflate the depth of the pocket or decrease the width of the pocket, right? You're trying to keep that little cup, the little U in front of the quarterback clean. And in that regard, if you're letting a guy get into you and decreasing that space, it's just not going to work. So that was the big reason. I took 8 points off in general for his pass blocking, but that was a major reason why. Another part of it was his foot quickness. Scared me a little bit at the top of the hoop. So when you're, hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about when I say like the pass rush arc, the path, the track that they're on to get to the quarterbacks, sort of rounding the edges of that cup, right? When he was transitioning from his first couple kick slides into rounding the hoop with those guys, it just didn't always look very clean. and he was getting beat by a few late counters at times where, his entire body mass would start to really ride these guys out and around the pocket because he was essentially leaning on them at that point. That's the whole point of no separation between them. And then they would stick a foot in the ground and counter back, whether it was a spin or just a almost like a hump move on some of those. And he would go flying past, and then there would be a free path to the quarterback. Albeit a little bit later in the play, it was still a pressure that shouldn't have been given up. Another thing that I had in regards to his pass blocking was his footwork in general. He was clicking his heels together a lot and compromising his base sporadically, which that maybe doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world, but go find your brother, your parent, anybody, and have a solid base, your feet shoulder width apart, right foot maybe with a slight stagger in front of your left, so you can actually be like Trevor Penning pulling left tackle, and have them sort of try and push you over, right? And it probably won't be that easy. And then stand with your heels completely together as though you're trying to bend over and touch your toes, and this is 5th grade gym class. Now have them try and push you and see how much of a difference there is because of the distribution of your weight. Your base is very narrow. You're susceptible to just getting kind of blown in the wind, right? If you were a big tower, that's you got to have a good strong foundation in that regard. Penning certainly did not at times, and again, it wasn't something that a ton of people made him pay for in college, but at the next level, that's something a defensive line coach or D coordinator is going to notice 15 seconds into watching him play. So you got to do something about that, and it's not as easy of a change as it sounds, which is why I ultimately gave him a little bit of a lower pass blocking grade than pretty much everybody that I graded this year at the OT position. Not quite, but for these earlier round guys, most certainly. In terms of some of the positives then, his run blocking, I gave him a 14.25 out of 15. I thought he had an impressive motor, really good job putting guys where he wanted them, probably because he had so much experience deflating and getting rid of that separation, right? He was so used to trying to drive block these guys that it translated to being a great run blocker. And hey, that's fine, but I don't think that's something that a lot of teams would necessarily want. Maybe the Tennessee Titans would love that, right? Because they just want to ride with Derrick Henry 30 snaps a game. So maybe Trevor Penning would be great there in the interim. But long term, if you put him on a team that wants to pass the ball 45 times a game, there's just got to be a lot of stuff done to his footwork and his hands and his demeanor and everything as a pass blocker first. Some other areas very quickly. Just in terms of the grades, I gave him a 7.25. Speaking of his hands, on hands, I gave him a 7 on his balance, again, because at times he would get his weight outside of his frame and really start to lean on guys and ride guys, and could just easily get dumped at times, I thought, whether it was as a pass blocker or run blocker. Power and strength I thought was very impressive. I gave him an 8.5 out of 10. He did 28 reps at 225 at the combine. I think you saw just about all of those. Now, again, low level of competition. Will it translate? I think so. I tend to think it will. Physicality and finishing, I am a 9.25 out of 10. Like I said, that was very good, right? Like, I don't think he has bad intentions the way he's blocking these guys on the pass block reps. He's trying his best to block them the best he can, and in that regard, I respect the willingness to play through the whistle and all that stuff, the good motor, etc., etc. But you just have to do it the right way, in my opinion. Otherwise, I gave him a 5.5 on IQ and awareness because it did just seem like his reactionary quickness wasn't quite there all the time. Again, maybe that was just the mentality difference, right? But to me, he's just got to get a little bit better at keying into what defenses are trying to do and what particularly edge rushers are trying to do to him. Whether you have to be able to diagnose like whether they're dipping their shoulder and trying to speed rush you off the edge, or they're going to give you their chest and try and convert speed to power, etc., etc., things like that. I just didn't think he quite did a great job because, again, I think to me, a lot of it was he just wanted to fire off straight at the guy no matter what play was called. It wasn't quite that bad, but I think you guys are getting what I'm saying. Last two grades, I gave him a 5 out of 5 on size and length. I think understandably so, right? 34 and 1/8 inch arms, long arms, big guy, tall guy, strong guy. 5 out of 5 I think seemed more than fair. And I gave him a 4.5 out of 5 on athleticism. The only category that was a little bit low, I suppose, at the combine was his vertical. But regardless, a very impressive athlete nonetheless. So I gave him an 81.97, as you guys can see on the screen. But I did, on my spreadsheet, I did give it the red flag because I would want to ask some questions before I definitely felt confident taking him, in the top 30, 35, 40 picks, for example. And I think there's a lot of teams that probably feel the same way. Maybe there's some that feel the opposite way, right? Like maybe I kind of jokingly said the Titans, but maybe there are teams that really want to pound the ball on the ground that would be super interested in Penning and interested early, right? Whereas in, say, the Charles Cross video, I was talking about how, he wasn't physical really at all, and a team that had him top 5 would have to want to throw the ball 50 times a game. Maybe the inverse is true for Penning, and he'll go earlier than I expect and anticipate, and would feel confident taking him myself because of that ability as a run blocker and just that toughness and that demeanor and all those things. So I give him a red flag. Like I said, I would really want to sift through some of these interviews and know, like, from the Northern Iowa coaching staff, like, did you try? Did you try to teach him how to pass block, right? Like, is this just something that he physically can't do or has tried to fix, and this is where he's at after 4 years of trying to fix it? Or, did you just kind of let him play because he was the best guy? I would want to know that personally. And unfortunately, that's not something we have access to right now. So I give him the red flag. All that means is that, this is my grade for his film, but there is sort of a, there's a question that before I felt confident actually drafting him here or in this range, I would need that question answered, despite not having a way to answer it right now. So hopefully we get that answer come Thursday night, maybe Friday, depending on where he ultimately goes. I'll certainly be excited to see, because like I said, there's a lot of good stuff to like in terms of the toughness, the run blocking, putting guys where he wants them, that just the demeanor, the power and strength, all that great stuff, the size, the length. Like, he has the length to be a really good pass blocker. He just has to learn how to time his punches and make things look a little bit cleaner at times than they do now, because I just thought it wasn't always the same issue on every play, but there were so many different issues that were popping up that I had to go through some of them there. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, if your team drafted Penning and now you're excited because you run the ball, or if your team drafted him and you're bummed out because you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you wanted to throw it 50 times a game, I'm sorry in that regard, but perhaps it's the other way, and you enjoyed the video. You're going to leave a like on it, you're going to subscribe to the channel, all those great things, so that way you're in the loop with future content, because for this one, I'm mic'd up, now I'm mic'd out. Peace, guys. I will see you next time.